Good morning and welcome to another session of RIPT, brought to you by the Sports Science Institute in partnership with Total Sport. For those of you who have joined my previous classes and you are accustomed to the class, I'm sure you'll know what to expect. For the newcomers, welcome. My name is Rode Yella and I will be taking you through a class which comprises of high intensity movements, ideally the functional type movements which we'll be able to perform in the comfort of our own homes. All we'll need for today's session is a relatively heavy backpack or a large water bottle. So the idea will be to fill up a backpack with something between 5 and 15 kgs. It just needs to be relatively heavy to your strength levels. So what I've done is I've got a backpack. It has a solid handle at the top. So you just need to make sure that you've got something similar to that. If you do have a dumbbell or kettlebell at home that will be relatively heavy for you, that would be perfect. What else you'll need for today's session, you can use a mat, just something to provide a little bit of cushioning from the ground, and then you can keep a sweat towel and water bottle nearby. So to get started with the class, I just want to quickly go through the basics of the class. If I do show you an exercise, please make sure that it is in line with what your physiotherapist or biokineticist has instructed in terms of any shoulder, lower back, knee niggles or any other issues you might have. Please do not push through the exercise to get through it if it is going to cause damage later down the line. So if you do feel any pains during any of the exercises, please make sure that you stop. I will be providing some modifications to the exercises which are either very complex or difficult, or anything that might cause pain if you do have shoulder niggles, lower back issues, or any knee injuries. Okay, so to get started, we'll grab our skipping ropes. If you don't have skipping ropes, you can just hop around on the spot. I'll pretend that I'm skipping by moving my hands while I'm bouncing off my toes. What we'll do now is just get the body warmed up. Make sure that the muscles are waking up from last night's sleep. Get the heart rate up as well as the breathing rate. Good, and you can relax. So from there, we're just going to go into some jogging on the spot. So we'll start off nice and easy. So you don't have to lift your knees too high just yet. From there, what we'll do is start moving up at the back. So it's butt kicks. And then from there, moving to the front, now it's high knees. Good, and you can relax. Next up, we'll go through some dynamic stretches. So we'll start off with the upper body, going into chest openers, where you'll be lifting your arms in opposite patterns. So the idea is to pull the shoulder blade behind the back, moving down into the opposite back pocket. So moving as far back as you can, you're actually pulling the shoulder blades together at the back, and we'll just open up for 5 per side. So you can count either your right side or your left side. Once you get to 5, we'll go into the next movement. Alright, so the next movement will be the A-frame. It will have a trunk rotation as well, so standing with feet just wider than shoulder width apart. What we'll do is we'll hinge at our hips and it will form the A shape, and as we place the elbow on the inside of the knee, you'll see that it's formed a nice A shape. To show you from the side, hinging at the hips means that you're pushing the hips back, you're keeping the legs relatively straight, and your back should also remain straight. You want to do this by pulling your shoulder blades backwards as you stay in that position. So what we want to do now is, in your A-frame position, do the trunk rotation where we watch our thumb all the way to the top. You'll notice how the chest opens as you swing to the top, rather than just pulling your hand back, leaving your chest behind. So what we want to do is 5 per side. So getting into your A-frame position, you'll feel tension in the hamstrings, rotating to the top, and slowly coming back. So you might feel that you can't actually reach the top, especially if you do sleep in funny positions. It's still early in the morning, so we just need to make sure that we take our time to loosen up. And we don't want to try and rush things. So if you do feel your lower back is feeling a little bit tighter than usual, please take your time during the warm-up. Right, so that's 5 of those. What we'll do next is head down onto the mat. So I'm going to start off by sitting down on the mat. I'm going to place my feet just off of the mat so that my knees will be able to get into contact with the mat. My hands will start behind me, and the idea will be to place your feet shoulder width apart, or maybe even just slightly wider than shoulder width apart if you have long legs. We're going to drop both knees to the ground, and the idea will be to keep your shins perpendicular to one another. So flat or straight in front, and then straight down the side. From here, we're actually keeping our hips as flat or low down as possible. We'll get the other arm to swing around, and from there you're going through the keyhole at the back. So we're going from one side to the other, swinging around and through the keyhole. We'll do 3 per side, so it's dropping both legs and then swinging around. So when you drop the legs, you want to first keep the hip low. Don't allow for your hip to lift up. Good. From there, we'll just go into a push-up position on the mat. And from the push-up position, we're actually going to place our feet shoulder width apart. So we'll do 1 push-up into a toe touch. For the toe touch, you need to push your hips backwards so it actually pikes the hips. So the push-up will be down nice and slowly, stabilizing on one side as we pike the hips to touch opposite toes. We're going for 5 push-ups where you touch the opposite toe each time, and it must be slow and controlled all the way throughout. Good. Once we finish with that, we'll go into the last exercise, which will be the hamstring extenders. We'll lay flat on our back from here, holding behind one knee, and we'll straighten the leg nice and slowly for 5, and then we'll go into 5 quick movements. So the slow movement is just getting the hamstrings prepared, and then we'll go into the quick movement, which you'll feel adds a little bit of tension to the hamstrings, and then into the straight leg movement. So for the straight leg, please make sure we don't lift the tunnel or the low back. We're moving up as far as you can, and it is a relatively quick speed. Good. Over to the other side. It's 5 slow. And then 5 fast. 5 straight leg. Always remember to close the tunnel underneath your low back. You want to do this by bracing around your midsection, so it's essentially engaging the pelvic stabilizers. Right, so once we've finished with that, we will go into our first exercise. So the first component is the primary lift component, and that is essentially the part of the session where we will be moving the slowest, or it will have the most tension on the muscles. And the idea is to slow down the movement so that we can create a longer period of work for that muscle group. So we'll be starting off with a split squat with a trunk rotation. I'll be using my backpack, and remember, it's a relatively heavy weight, so if you feel that the weight is too light, please grab something to add to the weight. If you feel it's too heavy, quickly try to get rid of some weight. So for your split squat, what you need to do is you go into a stance where at the bottom of the squat or the lunge, you'll see that your knees are at 90 degrees. So I know with the placement of my feet right now, that is the ideal placement. If I'm standing too narrow or too close together, you'll see that as I go into the bottom position, my knee is not at 90, or I'll start lifting the heel in the front foot. If I'm standing too wide, as I go into the bottom position, my hips are now pointing out to the angle rather than out in front. So once you establish the correct foot distance, you'll have your bag starting on the side which the back foot is. So if my right foot is at the back, the bag starts on the right hand side. Ideally, I'm always facing forward, and when I go to the bottom position, the hands are at your sides. As I slowly lift up, you're rotating, trying to get your chest across to the other side, but your hips always point forward. So to show you from the other side, it's from the bottom, slowly up. And remember, you want to take your time, rotating, and that will be the split squat with a trunk rotation. So what we'll do is we'll finish one set of that before we go into your next demonstration. So it will be 5 per side. Please keep your own count, and the idea is to move slowly. You're not trying to rush. If it becomes a balancing act, it could mean that you're standing with your feet too close together or in line, and as you're rotating, you're actually wobbling because your feet are in tandem. So you want to make sure that there is a little bit of width that will help with providing a base of support. Right, everyone ready? So going from our bottom position, it's a slow movement up, rotating, and then slowly rotating back. Ideally, you have most of your weight through the front foot, and you should be able to balance by keeping the back foot down. So that was my 5. Remember, you're keeping count for yourself. It needs to be a slow and controlled movement. Good, so that's 5 on both sides. What we'll do next is go into the Z press. So for the Z press, you need to sit flat on your mat. The idea is to shut off the lower body, so we're just allowing for our legs to lay straight in front of us. You'll find that if you have tight hamstrings, or you feel that your posterior chain, which includes your lower back, and your hamstrings are relatively tight, your calves also contribute to that, you might want to sit on something to lift up your starting point or your sitting point. So if you want to roll up a towel, you can sit on something, or will give you a little bit of elevation and take some tension off the hamstrings, lower back and calves. So in this position, you want to sit with your chest as far forward as possible. So you're not sitting in a semi-reclined position. Remember, if you are sitting in this position with the weight, you are adding to the strain your abdominals have to overcome. It's also not a comfortable position for your low back, so you ideally want to sit as far forward as possible. You're still engaging your abdominals, but your lower back is carrying less stress. So from here, with your weighted backpack, you are pressing directly above your head, and there should be a straight line up in front of you. You might find that your knees start bending as you either get tired or you feel that there's more and more tension on the posterior chain. But in that case, please reset add something underneath you and then control the movement with proper form rather than swaying to get through the numbers. So I'll grab my backpack now to demonstrate. So I'll show you from the left side so you can still see and hear me. From here, I'm sitting, pressing directly above my head and then controlling back down. Please ensure that you keep your arm close to you at all times. You don't want to press out to the side because your shoulder doesn't like that opening up movement, especially with added weight. So here we need to do 5 per arm. Right, so starting off, sitting up. As we press, please exhale forcefully, so you're breathing out with a lot of force. Good, so that's the 5. Now I'll go over to the other side. And that's 5. Good. So moving into our final exercise. So the last exercise of the primary lifts will involve a side plank into a starfish plank. So you're basically threading the needle while you're in the side plank position, and then you're rising up with the hips and the top foot to get into a starfish position. So once you've got your mat or towel set out, you're going to lay on your side like that, and the idea is to always keep your shoulders in line with your hips, knees and ankles, so that there's a straight line. I don't want to drop my hips behind, causing a straight line only in front of me, because this part needs to be forward. So if you do feel that your hips are starting to drop backwards, try squeezing the glutes to get your hips forward and always align in that position. So I'll show you 2 variations of this exercise. The first variation will involve the bottom leg being bent. With both options, your elbow is underneath or even slightly tucked in to your body so that you're protecting the shoulder joint. You do not want to go into a side plank with your shoulder exposed like that. Once again, your shoulder doesn't like those exposed positions. So either directly underneath or slightly tucked in, squeezing the glutes. You're going to keep the bottom leg bent for the first option, and that will allow for an easier base of support. The back of the foot can also help with balance. So from here, I'm into my side plank. The arm moves through the keyhole, and that will be the needle and thread. As it comes up, you're lifting the top foot. So through the keyhole and lifting the top foot. So that is option number 1. It is a slightly easier version. For the proper version, we'll keep both of our legs straight. So once we get into the side plank position, needle and thread, and then up to the top. And it's controlled. We're not swaying with the hips to lift up into the starfish. When we do rotate at your chest, your hips should remain in the same position. So here we'll do 5 per side. I'll start off with the straight leg option. So it's through and up to the top. That's 3. And that's 5. We will turn around to the other side. Getting into our side plank position, lifting up. Good. All right, so now that we've got our 3 exercises, we'll need to get through another 2 sets of each. So the first exercise is the slow and controlled split squat into trunk rotation. Remember, you need to move slowly with the bag, keeping your hips pointed forward at all times. It is 5 per side over there. The second movement is the Z press, where we are sitting with our legs still, and you're not swaying back and forward to help press the weight above your head. That one will be 5 per arm. And then lastly, the one that we just did now, will be the side plank into the starfish plank, and that is also 5 per side. Remember, you've got your two options there, either your bent knee or your straight leg. So we've done one set of each, we've got 2 sets of each to go. Please keep going at your own pace. I'll move through the second set to help those who need the modifications. And once we finish with that, we'll have a water break before our next block. So starting off for your split squat with the trunk rotation, if you do need a little bit of help, what we'll do is we'll start at the top, and you are only moving downwards and then rotating to the side. We're not rotating to our starting point where the bag is at the bottom. This will just help us with balance and coordination. So this is the first modified version where we're only moving down into the bottom and then rotating at the top. We're not starting off with our hands at the bottom. So this one, we'll do 5 per side like that. That will just give you more confidence in the movement, a little bit more understanding with the coordination, and ideally you should be able to maintain your balance all the way throughout. Please make sure that you're always keeping your weight through the front foot. If you are able to push through the heel, it will allow for your glutes to drive through the movement and should make the movement a little bit easier. Then for the Z press, what we'll do is the modified version will involve our knees being bent. So we will take some pressure off of the posterior chain, allow it to sit in this upright position. You'll feel that you can actually keep your chest forward with a little bit more ease than when it was at the bottom. So knees are bent for the modified version. If you are able to do this normally, you can continue, but this is the modified set. You're pressing in that position, and as you feel, you can slowly start inching your feet a little bit straighter and further away. You're going to try and find that point where it's actually starting to get difficult again, so it's not too easy all the way throughout. Right, and the last exercise, we'll go into the bent knee version. So placing the shoulder underneath or tucked by the shoulder, elbow by the shoulder, straight line through your hips, knees and ankle, and then we are lifting up into the side plank position. Keep that foot touching the ground. We'll do the needle and thread into the starfish. Swiveling over to the other side. Yeah, I've got my straight line, so I'll go needle and thread into starfish. Right, so we've got 2 sets down, 1 more to go. We can get through this one at your own pace. So if you are comfortable with the normal versions, or if you have a little bit more understanding with your modified versions, please continue. I will revert to the normal version now, just to finish up. And when we finish with that, you'll have a water break. So 5 per side with your split squat and rotation. That leads into your Z press. Remember to exhale or breathe out forcefully. And lastly, the needle and thread side plank into your starfish. Good stuff. Right, so you've got a quick water break, and then we'll go through the next component. So for those of you who are not familiar with the structure of the class, the primary lift was essentially the slower and tougher section for the movement patterns. Now we'll go into a slightly easier set of movement patterns. However, the intensity of the exercise will now increase, so it's a lot quicker. We're looking to move through each of the exercises as quickly as possible, but we're not compromising for form or control of the movement. So our next session is called the Metcon, which is the metabolic conditioning component, and that is essentially large muscle groups working at the same time, getting your heart rate up as well as your breathing rate. So have a quick drink of water, keep your bag or weighted object nearby, and then we'll go through your demonstration. Alright, so for your demonstration, for today's Metcon, we'll have 5 exercises. We need to get through each of those exercises for the allotted repetition, and what we'll do is a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 ladder, where we're working through 10 repetitions of the first movement, 20 of the second, third will be 30, then we'll go into the 40s, and then eventually the 50 repetitions. Please make sure that you're able to count while you're moving. It does get quite confusing, especially when we get to the higher numbers. So to take you through the demonstrations of our 5 exercises, we'll start off with your weighted curl-ups. So for the weighted curl-ups, I'll use this mat to lay flat on my back. I'll keep my bag with me so that in your starting position, you've got your bag pointed at the ceiling and it's a magnet towards the ceiling, so you're not allowed to drop it behind your head and get momentum on the way up. Your lower body is shut off, so it's only the upper body moving, and what you want to do is pretend that you're a sticker being peeled off of a surface to get to the top, so it's slowly curling upwards, keeping your hands directly above your head, get to our top position, and then you're a sticker being reapplied, so it's slowly at the base, and then back down. So what we'll do is 10 curl-ups, and the movement will be controlled at your own pace. Remember, you don't want to use your legs, and you're not allowed to use your hands for momentum. From there, we'll go into goblet squats. We will be doing 20 goblet squats. You're either hugging or cradling the weighted object in front of you. If you want, you can even pop the straps over your shoulders, but just make sure you're not wasting time to put the straps over, because you need to move from the one exercise straight into the next. So for the goblet squats, you are sitting as deep as possible. The idea is to keep the bag in front of you, but you're not obstructing your knees with your elbows. So if I find that I get to this position and I start touching there, you are getting your elbows in the way, and the bag is actually pulling you forward. So you're not meant to be leaning forward like that for the squat. You want to stay upright at all times, down as deep as you can, and then up again. So the goblet position is just in front of you. If you want, you can hold it underneath like that. Please make sure that you're not leaning like that, you're not lifting the heels, or as you get to the bottom, you're not curling your back to sit down. If that is the deepest position you can achieve, then that's fine. You will improve over time. From the goblet squats, we'll do 30 kettlebell swings. So for the kettlebell swing, we're starting off in front of the weighted object, holding on with both hands. From here, we are squeezing the glutes to protect the lower back and get ready for your hips to thrust forward. We'll also pull the shoulders backwards to straighten the back. And as we push the hips forward, you'll see that the back starts swinging. So it's not a movement generated by your shoulders, it's all in the hips. Your hands are just holding on to the weighted object so that it doesn't fly away as you swing forward. And on the way back, you want to absorb the movement through your hamstrings. So once you've provided the movement forward, your hamstrings are absorbing the weight and you're swinging like a pendulum. Please make sure that you stop the weight on the ground rather than stopping abruptly, because your back does not like that. So that will be 30 swings if you would like, and if you are capable, you can go one arm at a time. That way you'll do 15 and 15. So the total number will still be 30. From there, we'll pop the weighted object to the side, return to our mat, and we'll go into plank jacks for 40 repetitions. For the plank jack, what you'll do is either the high plank position, where we start off like that, feet together, hands directly underneath your shoulders, place shoulder width apart, and our feet are together, moving from narrow to wide. You're moving as wide as you can, keeping your hips level, and you're bouncing back and forward like that. If you would like, you can go into the low plank position, and then you bounce back and forward like that. In both cases, please keep your hips as level as possible. You are trying to stop all movement at your midsection so that the upper body doesn't get disrupted. So 40 repetitions there lead into our 50 repetitions of the high knees. And high knees is essentially running on the spot, getting the knees up as high as possible. We're counting each time the right leg or the left leg goes up. So that would be 1, 2, 3. So it doesn't count each time a knee goes up, it's only the same side. Right, so going through at your own pace, we'll go from 10 through to 50. If you do need help remembering the exercises, you can follow me. I'll try and move at a reasonable pace so that you don't have a 2 or 3 minute wait before I get to the point where you're at. And if you do feel like you're struggling at the back, please make sure that we don't rush to compromise form and then get through the exercise. Starting off, we've got the weighted curl-ups. So it's 10 repetitions here. Holding your object, getting ready, and let's go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get back to the bottom, and we'll go into our 20 goblet squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's halfway. 12, 13, 14, 15, 5 more, 16, last 3, and that's 20. Kettlebell swings, so remember you can do 2 arms or single arm. I'll start off 2 arms. 2, 3, 4, 5, you're looking to get to 30, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm going to single arm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll do 5 more. And now switch. Five more.
9, and 10. Good. Getting into my plank jacks. I'll start off like this. 1. 10. That's 20. And then I'll do another 20 like this. Right, finishing up with high knees. This one will be confusing to count for, so just make sure you have some system for right leg or left leg. Halfway. And that's 50. Well done everyone, good stuff. So if you're still finishing up, please get through that. Once you finish, you'll have a water break. So while you're finishing up with your water break, I'll talk you through our final component. So for those of you who are familiar, you know what you should feel like by this point. If you are new to this, the finisher is essentially the final bit of the session where we're just looking to empty the tank. So you should have worked hard during the primary lifts. Make sure that you continued working hard in your metabolic conditioning. And now, if by any chance you've actually saved some energy for the end, you should get rid of that energy now. So for our finisher for today, it will be more of a core stabilizer complex. So we've got a plank complex where we've got 2 variations of the plank. The first one, we need to use our mat and we're doing a plank walkout. So if you are able to, you'll go from a high plank position, so hands directly underneath your shoulders, shoulder width apart. You can put your feet hip width apart as well. And we'll walk out as far as we can without dropping our hips that way. So it's still hips up, and then we walk all the way back. If you need to, go onto your knees, and then you can perform the same movement, walking all the way back. Please make sure you're not aiming to go out as far as possible with your hands, but you leave your hips up in the air. So it's not about the distance you achieve with your hands, but it's the height that you're able to achieve with your chest and your hips, and it's the height relative to the ground. So if you're keeping your hips and chest up there but moving your hands out there, it's not stabilizing or requiring you to stabilize your pelvic region as well as if you were lower down. So you want to get lower down with your chest and hips and then walk all the way back up. So what we'll do is walk out and come back 3 times. From there we'll go into commando planks, where we're going from a high plank position into low plank position and back up. Once again, you can perform this on your knees, and once again, we'll perform 3 repetitions of that. We need to cycle through those 2 exercises 3 times. So it's 3 walkouts into 3 commando planks. 3 walkouts, 3 commando planks, and then finishing up with your 3 walkouts and your final 3 commando planks. Okay, so moving at your own pace. We'll get started. 3, 2, 1. So it's the first of the 3. And now into my commando planks. Good, so that's the first version down. I'll show you the modified version, that's my second one. Right, that's 2 down, last one to go. I'll go back to normal version. Good stuff. Right, well done. Once you finish all 3, you will have finished the finisher, and you'll have a water break before we go into a quick stretch. If you want, you can keep your water bottle with you, and while we stretch, you can have a sip. So starting off with the stretch, go into a figure 4 position where we'll bend one knee, place it on the other side where the ankle is on the opposite knee, and from there you'll hug the knee. You can decide which knee you prefer to hug. From there, we'll turn the hips over to the other side so that you're dropping the knees. Keep your shoulders flat at all times and try and look towards the other side. You don't want to lift up at the shoulder. And then back to the starting point, switching over to the other side. Once again, you can hug whichever knee you prefer. And then dropping over to the other side. From here, we'll go into a half kneeling position. So one foot is, or one leg is bent, other one is out in front of you. If my right knee is down, my right hand will go up. I maintain a straight line, squeeze with the glutes to get the hips forward. You'll feel there's a little bit more of a stretch here. And as I reach with my fingers to the ceiling, you'll feel that there's more of a stretch over here by the lats. The same hand that was up will now reach towards the toes of the front foot. You'll push the hips backwards and you'll feel a little bit of tension in the hamstrings. And then we'll switch over to the other side. So it's half kneeling. Now with the left knee, left hand goes up. And then reaching. Well done. From there, finishing up, we'll get into a plank position for the last time today. And walk our hands all the way back until we reach the top. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed that. For the newcomers, please make sure that you catch us next week at the same time. For the frequent viewers, please make sure that you tell your friends to join, and we'll see you same time next week. Cheers.